All right, guys, welcome to this week's episode. I'm super excited because this is actually a guy I met through our business. That's one of the biggest benefits that I love about this business is the relationships that I've been able to create all over the world. And this guy's actually across the pond, right? Like he lives overseas, but through our business, we've been able to connect through some men's groups and some different events that we do and just building the business. And so I wanted to introduce my buddy Kyle. He's ex-military, actually turned into an entrepreneur and a business owner. He is the founder and CEO of RYDE Studios. It's a rapidly growing boutique fitness brand with locations all across the UK. With a background with elite sports and a passion for human performance, he's built a career on helping people transform their lives, their mindset, and just overall lifestyle. But beyond business, what I love about this guy, he is a devoted husband, father of three, and he's just dedicating to creating a life of impact and leadership and legacy with all those that he runs across. So with that being said, guys, I want you to welcome to the show, Kyle. Man, I really appreciate you being a part of it. And for those that have not had the opportunity to meet you yet, why don't you give just a brief background of kind of where you're coming from, and then we'll just kind of get into the conversation.
Sure, definitely. Thank you so much for having me, man. I appreciate you asking me to come over, and thank you so much for the kind words. Yeah, over here in the UK, so I live in the north, just close to a city called Leeds. I actually joined the military when I was 16, so pretty young for Americans. You can't do that until you're a little bit older.
Right.
But here you join at 16, you do like an apprenticeship kind of thing, and you don't really join the army till you're 18, but you do 2 years in the military. So I served for 10 years. Did a couple of tours of Afghanistan, got to travel quite a bit. I got to work with the US Marine Corps guys quite a bit. I was over in Quantico with those guys before we deployed out into Afghan. But after leaving the military, I moved down to London. And it was a big kind of eye-opening experience going from like being in the military to be thrown into the middle of, Canary Wharf, London, and the financial district of the world. And it sort of opened my eyes to the abundance of wealth and financial education and the ability to grow yourself and be better and earn a better life. I saw a big change in the fitness industry when I was living down in London. These like main big gyms were closing, rents going up, costs are going up, and these big gyms that had swimming pools and basketball courts were all closing down. And the fitness industry then popped up with small boutique studios. And it happened over in the States, first of all. Soul Cycle and Barry's and these studios popped up, and the UK followed suit. And I wanted to be a business owner. I'd always been in the fitness industry. I always wanted to own my own business, run my own thing, and call the shots myself. I didn't want to compete in London. It's a big competitive market, a lot of big companies, a lot of big brands. So I moved back to Leeds, opened up my first business called L1 Performance, which was a large scale gym, personal training studio. And we ran that place for 5 years and it was great. It was amazing. My learning curve went up at the fastest pace I've ever seen, made a lot of mistakes, learned very quickly how to correct those mistakes. It's actually where I met my now wife, Charlotte. She was a personal trainer at the time. She's originally a professional trained ballerina, so a dancer by trade, but went into the fitness industry. And then during COVID, we had to shut shop. Expensive rates, being in the middle of the city centre. The hardest decision I've ever had to make was to close our business. I had 35 members of staff all relied on me for life, living, income, mortgage, money. But I wanted to act quickly. So what I actually did is I can remember the day like it was yesterday, 22nd of April, 11 o'clock, Boris Johnson, our Prime Minister at the time, all fitness facilities and gyms have to close as of now. And I can remember people walking out of the gym saying, see you in a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, we'll be back.
Right.
We'll have a bit of a cough and sniffles, and we'll be back soon. And I rang my landlord, and my landlord was like, I said, what's the plan? They said, I don't know, but you need to start paying rent a bit quicker and upfront. So I was like, that's not the business plan that I like.
Right. That's cute. You think that, but that's not how revenue and business works, man. Like if there's nobody coming in.
About this. So I went back to my connections in Canary Wharf. I ran a couple of my OPT clients. They were all MDs and above in kind of the big 5 banks, JP and Morgan Stanley. And they said, no, this is serious. This is a 2 to 3 year financial crisis and the world's going to stop. So if you have like a cash flow problem, you need to plug that bucket before it doesn't, you don't have anything left. I made the decision over the weekend. I trusted their guidance. I rang 3 separate people in that world, said the same thing. and I closed the gym overnight, and a lot of backlash saying, "Oh, you're acting too quickly," and this. But I wanted to do it in a way that allowed me to act appropriate. I wanted to be
Right.
able to look after my staff, make people redundant, pay back my members, my clients, make sure they got their money back, and I'll be able to deal with the business correctly. And I'm glad I did, because it's so important, brand and name, especially in the city, because I knew I was going to come back into that city. And during COVID, I designed and then reopened RYDE. So I'm now CEO and founder of RYDE Studios, boutique fitness studio based around rhythm ride indoor cycling, but we also do yoga, Pilates, bar. We own a studio in Leeds, Manchester, and we're about to open our third studio in Liverpool next year.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, yeah, COVID was a huge eye opener, and I think that's why I've always connected with you, even the first time we met, because something you just said, knowing the kind of character that you have to want to say, okay, because I've been in the fitness world a long time too, and I saw a lot of gyms, man, that collected dues. I was even a part of a fitness apparel line that even though I was kind of a part of it, but I also was kind of on subscription with them. I remember them taking subscriptions for a little while, keep drafting. They weren't shipping nothing, right? They just shut their doors, kept everyone money, didn't give anything back. And just like what you said, I was talking about this on my episode I shot yesterday, but the authenticity of people is something that I think is so lacking in today's world, right? Because ones they're posting stuff and they're doing this and or they're not being their true self because they're scared what is everyone else going to think. And I know you went through that with that whole situation. I mean, because it's like, okay, well, if I do this, what's this person going to think? If I do this, and everyone and their mother has an opinion, but yet they're not paying your bills or paying your people and doing anything else. And so, I think it's lacking in today's world, especially. It's funny. I was listening to a podcast coming over here back to the house, and it was on iHeart, and it said, this is an iHeart podcast, authentically human. And I was like, that's the world we're in. They're literally having to say, like, this is a human podcast. Like you're not listening to some freaking voice. And I think there's going to be a massive shift in the marketplace where people are going to be craving authenticity.
100%.
And then what you're saying about burning your word, man, like I've tried to teach my boys their whole life that your word's everything, and I actually heard my son regurgitate this the other day, talking about a fellow employee that he works with that is constantly no-showing on jobs. And he's a phenomenal worker, right? But he constantly no-shows. And he's like, yeah, it takes twice as long to rebuild a burnt bridge than to, and to never burn it at all, or to build it in the first place, right? To build that bridge in the first place. And once you burn it, it takes twice as long to rebuild it.
Yeah, I think it comes back to the kind of military days. Your word is your bond. If
Yeah.
you say so, and you can't not do it because you're held accountable for people's lives, especially in the military. And when it came to closing L1, I just knew I had to be me, and I had to do what I wanted to do, even though there's all these words saying, no, you should be doing that. Just wait, put it out, it'll be fine. I
Right.
didn't want to get to the point where I couldn't act how I wanted to act. And that would have meant opening it or keeping it open for longer, losing cash to be able to act how I wanted to act appropriately. So yeah, it was I got to do this. I got to look after other people.
Right. Well, what was it from that young age that drew you toward the military? Because we have something similar, which I ended up like in my senior year. I was actually in delayed entry program for the that's what they call it here in the States for the Navy. I was my whole senior year I was delayed entry, and I ended up getting hurt and separated in boot camp and sent home, which was um, a real, like, I thought I had my whole next 4 years planned out, and next thing you know, I'm getting sent home. But so that was a whole nother story. But and so I kind of am familiar or know what you're saying, because I had that desire too, kind of early. But what was it that really intrigued you, where you wanted to do that for basically 2 years before you even were able to actually join?
So two reasons: a big military family. My dad, his dad, his dad, his dad. Long generation of British Army. There's been a Harris sort of served in most conflicts all the way back to like the Boer Wars.
Really?
My old man was, kind of in the Falklands, Northern Ireland, and his brothers were Falklands, Northern Ireland. His dad was a pilot during the Second World War. So it was something I knew was going to happen. I travelled to Germany, to to around Europe with my dad when he was in the military. So it was always something I wanted to do. I was very proud of my old man being in the military, and I saw him. Every father is a boy's superhero, but my old
Right.
man wore a uniform at the same time. So it's something I always knew I was going to do. But also, I was in that era of 9/11. I joined the military in 2004, so not long after that, and that segmented my decision. Was like, I'm not going to let that happen. I can't come to my home, so I've got to go take it to their home, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it, man. I mean, it was huge, and it's crazy how long and drawn out all that was, and I was reading some stuff the other day, um, and it was actually a documentary that happened a few years back, and so I don't know what the totality of it, but they were talking about, like, there's over 650,000 people, right, that were involved in this conflict, and then what's hurtful, because I'm friends with a lot of vets, of the way they withdrew it. It just kind of was like, what was it for? Like, what, and I know you've been through a lot. You saw a lot, went through a lot over there, and to have that kind of finality where it was like, okay, we're out, we're done, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, it's exactly how when we showed up. Like, what's really the change here? Like, what was the point of all that sacrifice
It's a
to
real
do it?
shame as well because Afghanistan is probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever been in my life.
Really?
Beautiful, what a beautiful country. Honestly, if you ever get the opportunity, it is phenomenal landscape, beautiful, beautiful people. Um, and yeah, it was a long drawn out time, and we spent a lot of time, and it closed pretty rapidly. I think the only benefit was that you can see, yeah, the Taliban came back in and they've taken control, but I believe the Taliban now understand that they can't harbor Al Qaeda.
Right.
That they can't facilitate uh, the next level of what the Taliban is. Because yeah, the Taliban are uh, a terrorist organization. They rule with an iron fist, and they're not good people. But the Al Qaeda and the people that were involved in the 9/11s are worse, and the
Right.
Taliban won't allow that to happen inside that country again. So that's the only pro that I sort of look at. There's that one more place that can't harbor that level of terrorism to launch attacks into the world.
Well, I think that's and kind of going back to, or saying what true decisive, I don't know if you want to use the word hard leadership, though, recognizes, so, love him or hate him over here with Trump, like, they know, like, he'll do what he says he's going to do. Like, like, it was amazing to see the stark difference of 4 years under Biden, and then starting back in the Trump's next term, of the difference of, I guess you say, respect from leaders around the world, of like, okay, like, we're not going to be able to walk on this dude. Like, he says a lot of crazy stuff, but he's also crazy enough to do some of that stuff. Like,
Yeah.
he'll back it up, but it's just that leadership. And I think sometimes in today's world, again, there's so many people that they lack that. I think leadership is a huge hole in today's society, where everyone wants to follow everything. They don't have purpose in their life. They don't know where they're going. They don't have direction. So they just glob on to whatever kind of sounds good, or whatever group makes them feel good. Because for so long, well, if I play victim, I'm going to get, I'll get all this support, and I'll get all the feel goods. But yet, where does it get you? Playing that card, it's just going to start identifying you in a certain way, to where it's never going to get you to where you want to go. But having that leadership, and I know you've shown that not only through your military background, but also, with your companies, because, like I said, you knew, okay, this is, COVID was, for lack of a better word, stumbling block. This is a huge block in the plan, but I know, like you said, I know I'm going to reopen. So the things I do now is going to definitely affect when I reopen, because if you didn't do right by people, or you kind of screwed them over, you kept dues, you did this and that, people are like, oh, I remember last time, I'm
Yeah.
not going to be doing it. So I guess, starting to go back with in your military, man, I always love asking some of the guys this, like, what's one of the most either defining, or number one thing that, like, that developed you, like, that you learned through your military experience, that kind of formed you into the man and the father you are today?
Um, I think it's maybe like seeing other leadership. So, I joined at 16, went through the military to go to Afghanistan, went through the leadership ranks, and it was having other leaders show the way. So in the military, you have ranks, corporal, sergeant. I had the joy of having some amazing people in front of me who had been there, done that, led the way, and led with integrity. That showed me that this is the person that you need to be. The section commanders, the sergeants that I worked with, made me the section commander and the sergeant that I am from their experiences. And we all come across people who we think, yeah, you've just got to that place by, a level 1 leader. So you
Right.
just, whereas if levels of 5 levels of leadership,
Right.
level 3, level 4, where you get to see these people. And that's what the military was for me. And I think also sports are big into sports. So you get to see those captains of the rugby team, when you get to be around those people and immerse yourself with other leadership and people who you aspire to be. And that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be the person in front of me. If I was looking when I was in the military, sat on my day sack, listening to the guys talk about, I wanted to be that person. And then when I got to that place, I'd then be in another room and I'd listen to somebody else. I wanted to be that person, and
Right.
then learn from that.
I think that's what's so important about that circle that you're surrounded with, right? Because
Yeah.
it'll define you in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? And I think about it in every aspect. I know throughout business, I've always wanted to be like the lowest paid guy in the room, right? Because I want to learn by guys that have been there, done that are far better than me. I never want to be that guy I never wanted to be in the room where I was the top. Like I want my circle to be around people
You're
I
in the
can
wrong
grow
room.
from.
You're in the wrong room
Right.
if you're the smartest person, right?
Right, right, and so and I think that's what's so big that people have to realize, because we're seeing a lot in the States, because there's a lot of division everywhere, and I always look at that as it's such a ploy of the enemy. I mean, I was just reading this morning or yesterday, where Jesus was talking to where he was like, how can a house divided against itself stand, right? It can't. And so if you want to keep control over people, separate them over nonsense. But yet it's amazing, when I hear or see some of the newscasts of some of these protests or some of this just idiotic stuff going on in the world right now. But yet those people are defined by those people who they're around. So, whether good, bad, or ugly, you're going to be defined. And that's why I try to tell my boys, because some of the laws we have here in Texas, man, if you're present during certain crimes, like you get charged just like you were doing
You're
it,
doing it.
right? Yeah. And I was like, so you got to recognize that. And if you're hanging around that crew, don't think that they're going to be the man and stand up and take responsibility. They're probably going to throw you right under the bus, because they're not a person of good character anyway. And so, kind of in your life, whether it's through your business, from your military, or even in family, how would you define how having that kind of character is so important in those aspects of your life?
I think it's, well, from a position of why I want to have those characteristics. Do you mean? Yeah, I think it's wanting to go on the journey. Let's say for my family, knowing the journey that I've been on to always make myself better, and being able to make decisions. For example, like with your kids in Texas, making the decisions to not be in that group of kids, but be with this group of kids. I think it's really important now to pass that back on to my children, if that's all makes sense. So I want my kids to be able to watch me, just like how I watch my dad make those right decisions. And those characters are yeah, that's so important.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and I
go
think no, and I think that's the biggest problem with, when you talk about leadership. And we talk a lot on this show. My whole thing is I want people to get the most life out of every year on earth. And I know people that are crazy rich and miserable. That's no way to live. I know people that have phenomenal health, but their finances are crap. So that's a big problem, right? I know people that are spiritually bankrupt and are always seeking and looking, but that moral character that should be displayed, where right is right and wrong is wrong. I heard a quote, I don't know if it was by Milton Freeman or maybe it was one of our Supreme Court justices or one of them, but it was like, um, facts can change opinions, but opinions can't change facts. Right. And,
Yeah.
and in today's world, everyone has an opinion about something and most of them are wrong, but yet they want it to be factual. Right. And you can't form a truth around a falsity or a deal. And I think, when it comes to being a man of character, being a man of discipline, being a man of your word, like I've told my boys their whole life, I was like, y'all going to do some stupid stuff. I'm sure I did a lot growing up, but look, if you get caught, own it. Like if you're man enough to do it, be man enough to admit it,
100%.
period. Right. Don't try to lie your way out of it. Like if you're a big enough man to do it, be big enough man to admit it. But, and I saw that growing up because in high school, I was a pretty wild guy. How my wife stayed with me throughout our high school years, I will never know. But, I saw that play out because if I got accused of something, like the principals knew, I would admit it if I did it. But if I said I didn't do that, they would believe me because they knew,
Character.
100%. And I think that's what's, I don't think people put enough, importance on like the little things of keeping your word. I think it goes even deeper though, not only to other people, but to yourself, right? Are you compromising with yourself when saying like with you, say you had a goal with your business and and you said, I'm going to do X, right? Like this is my goal or this is my commitment where I'm going to show up every day and do X. And then you start kind of slacking and then you're like, it's okay. No, like you just broke your word to yourself. And then how easy is that to continue?
Well,
And I don't,
go on, sorry, I was going to say it's the famous American naval officer, start your day by making your bed. It's your
right.
first win. Character.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's what you tell yourself, hold yourself accountable first.
And I think how can you ever expect accountability from other people if you're not willing to hold yourself? Right. But everybody wants everyone else to be accountable to them, but they won't even be accountable to themselves. And if you're not accountable to yourselves, are you really going to be accountable to other people? Right. Because if you're willing to compromise, and I think this is the view of self, if I'm willing to lie to myself, basically, or compromise to myself, I should love myself at a level where I want to hold myself accountable to me and say, okay, I said I'm going to quit eating X, so I'm going to quit eating X. I'm not going to, compromise with that, and I think that's where, so many people, they live this life of constant compromise because they're scared of the what if or scared of what if someone's going to say. So they're never their true authentic self. They're not man enough to stand up for what's right. Like I was the guy, I would go to my son's schools, like if there was things going on, and I would hear other people talk about like, well, I would say that, but I don't want to cause trouble, or I don't want my kid to be embarrassed, or what's right is right. Like what are you talking about? And,
I don't know if because
go ahead.
I don't know if because like opinion, like you said, opinions and facts. If opinions are more powerful in the world nowadays, that accountability doesn't need to be as strong. So people let themselves get away with more, and they expect to be let go of things more because of, like you say, social media, opinions. Accountability isn't in the opinion, it's in the fact. And the world is going more into those kind of opinion realms where people believe opinions over facts. I think, we're talking about character and holding yourself responsible. It's easier not to do that because the world sort of expects it a little bit more.
Right. Well, we saw it during COVID, right? I had multiple trips during COVID, and there's this whole mask nonsense, and they're literally telling you you're okay to put it down if you're going to eat, but if not, you have to put it up, right? So everyone knows logically, like this makes no sense. Or even being in restaurants, if you're standing, you have to have a mask on, but if you're sitting at your table eating, you're okay. Like like this is air, right? It doesn't, or even people that would have these plexiglass around them, like air doesn't travel around freaking, plexiglass, whatever. So we saw this, but how many people were scared to speak truth because the masses, the opinions of the masses were so hard out there, and then they would try to drill you like and try to make you feel like you're this major danger to society, because you have common sense, to what's going on. But that's where it was, that was a big social experiment for me, man, to really know where people stood on a lot of things, right? Like when it hits the fan, because you and I are both business owners. I've had traditional business myself. And I remember me and my wife were talking one time, and I was just saying, I was like, the power's not with the people that are making the rules. The power's in the people, right? Like we have there's way more of us than there are them. And if everyone decided, okay, this is enough, I'm going to open my business, they're not going to round everybody up. You know what I'm saying? Like they can't, because and that's where I'll never forget my wife, because I was never a big mask wearer. I wore about 3 times. 2 were on a flight, and 1 I had federal jury duty one time, and I just thought it'd be cool to be on federal jury duty because I'd never done it, and I thought it might be some cool drug case or something. It wasn't. Someone was suing Home Depot, so I was like, but other than that, I never wore one. I was like, you're not going to tell me that this is going to make a difference, because I could wear literally anything on my face, and you're going to tell me that somehow is going to help. It just never made sense to me. And my wife, I know we're driving somewhere, and she goes, when do you think all this mask stuff's going to stop? I'm like, when people get tired of wearing them. Like when people are like, okay, this is enough. And if everyone just said that, it would have been over so much faster. But yet we believed all these lies and these opinions and these narratives and this stuff. And then everyone was scared to speak up, because heaven forbid, if you go against that crowd, oh, the backlash, right? And of course, they made examples of people that did it. Right. They really try to cancel them, or even highly respected doctors and people. They just try to drill them. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that we face in society today, of people just, again, willing to stand up and say, no, what right is right and wrong is wrong. Period. In the discussion.
Is that happening more in the States now, or are the masses starting to talk back up again? Or?
No. But you still, again, a social experiment. I still see people walking around with them. I still see people in their cars by themselves wearing a stinking mask, right? Like it's crazy to me. And it almost makes me feel like now this is part of their identity, right? They've adopted this, and they allowed, and I know you can probably go into this with some of your military stuff, the importance of not allowing fear to dictate your decisions.
Sure.
Right. Because I know you went through some hairy stuff, man. Like you went through some crap overseas. But what would have happened to not only yourself and or the people that was under your command if you allowed fear to dictate your decision making?
Yeah.
I mean, how would that have looked?
It would have been a completely different decision. It would have been a backward step rather than a forward momentum. Fear halts people. Fear allows people to make decisions that aren't in the greater good or what's best. It's worry, it's fatigue, it's shock. If you're making decisions out of fear, those decisions aren't going to be the strongest decisions that you ever made in your life. 100%.
So how would you recommend's not the right word, but advise someone if they're in that spot, like to overcome fear?
Faith. It has to be the opposite. You have to act from the opposite. Faith, be that within your religious beliefs or the beliefs that you have. You have to understand that the faith that you have is stronger than the fear, and you have to be able to put that faith up in front and believe in it single-heartedly and truly, that the faith that you have is stronger than the fear. And until you can do that, you're always going to act on the fear.
Well, I think that goes into even like your military, right? Like you take all the religious part out of it. Yeah, if you didn't have
the faith in the military, is something like the drills, the skills, the companionship that you've created. You have to believe that you moving forward towards, I don't know, you come under attack and you're moving towards something. The faith is, I believe that I'm skilled and drilled enough to hold myself accountable, but I also know the 7 guys alongside me here are also in the same position, and that my faith is that they're going to act in that position through their training, their skills, and their drills. And I don't think any of them act in fear.
Right. And how much stronger is that when each of your brothers, y'all all have that faith in each other,
step forward at the same time.
Right. And I got you, knowing And I think going back to that circle, right? If you surround yourself with people that that you align with, right, in whatever areas of your life, but that are you're in true alignment with, you're willing to take risks, you're willing to do things that you would probably maybe never do on your own, but
It
knowing,
changes everything. It can change your future, change your life by the people that you are immersed by. Me and my wife went through a big part of it a couple of years ago when she started her new skin business. The circle that she was involved with just didn't understand it, didn't get it, didn't appreciate her to the point where they're sending messages to each other about her. And I said, "Fe- that's coming from fear.
right,
We now need to move you into a different room, a different circle of people." And the people that she's now met through her business are different, completely different ballgame.
right, yeah,
Mindset.
yeah, 100%, right. You're the mindset of which you have, you know, the in Think and Grow Rich, it always talks about like how the limitations are those we set in our own head, right? And I just finished a book called Pure Human by Greg Braden. It really talks about like the divinity within us, like what we really have in us. But it goes really deep into a lot of science of how we're made, how we're created, how our brains work, and even like the brain and our heart, right? Like the whole thing, how everything works together. And he even talks about that where there's so many times that whether we're like parts of our brain, whether we're watching an experience or we live the experience, our parts of our brain don't know the difference, right? Like we experience that excitement or that dopamine hit or whatever emotion at the same level, whether we experience it or not. Same with the limitations, right? If we see somebody achieve something, then all of a sudden our brain clicks like, oh, that's possible, right? Like we can do that, you know. And I was talking with one of my team members earlier today, and we had this discussion. It's like, you know, I talk to people about some of our financial goals going into these next couple of years, and they're literally like high six figure a month type goals. And I tell people this sometimes they look at me like I have two heads. They're like, that's almost like they're literally you can't do that. That's impossible. Whatever, whatever. But I know people that do it. Like I've seen it. I know people that do seven figures a month in our company, in our business, right? And I'm like, but it's been done. Well, and if they can do it,
And that's where you move your group, your circle into the correct circle, where your goals are someone else's like nothing. You know, when you can talk about high six figures a month and then you go sit in a different room where that's just like, yeah, we started doing that a few years ago.
right, right, right. I was talking to a mutual friend of ours, Charlie, the other day, and he asked me my goals. I was like, yeah, you know, by 2030, you know, we're about to launch this new technology in the marketplace with our Prism device. And I said, yeah, I want 50,000 of these devices on my network on subscription by 2030. If I hit those goals, it'd be like 625 a month, American dollars. And he looked me dead in the eye and said, why are you thinking so small?
Sounds like
And
Charlie.
it popped me, right? Because I'm like, man, am I thinking too small? You know, but I love being around people that are going to push you and stretch you. And I think that's the other problem with most people is they want to be around a comfortable circle. Someone that never challenges them, never holds them accountable, just, you know, never pushes them, never stretches them, which I think is such a boring way to live, man. Like if you're not stretching and challenge, like if you're not uncomfortable, like that to me, that would be going and getting a job, which I know for you and I would be like death.
The worst. It's what motivates me. It's one of my most motivating pushes was
Right.
to never have that or go into a job.
Cause it's
That's more,
mindless,
yeah.
right? Like it's just like someone's telling you when you can eat, when you can go to the bathroom, what you do every day, when to show up, when to not. Like it's just to me, it's the simplest thing to do. And that's what aggravates me, not aggravates me, but it saddens me for so many people because they get stuck in this and they hate what they're doing. Like they don't enjoy going to work, but yet they're gonna spend decades of their life. And I was telling a guy the other day, he was complaining about this. We actually had one of our at one of our conventions last a couple months ago, and we had a in-person group with just a bunch of men, and there was a guy in there talking about this. He's like, yeah, man, I'm like I hate my job. Like you could just see the dread on his face. And I was like, well, how long you been doing it? It was like 15 years. I'm like, well, why don't you do something different? He's like, well, that's why I'm here. I want to learn and build some new cash flow so I can exit out. I was like, yeah, but for 15 years, every day you made a choice. Like, you get that, right? Like, you're choosing. This isn't the only job. There's thousands of jobs. You're making a choice every day. So why don't you choose to do something different, to make a different decision, and I'm not saying just quit and go balls out into something else. I'm just like, do something, like, you figure it out. He's like, well, that I'm finally there. I'm like, but what in here took you 15 years to get to that?
Well, it's I'm doing a lot of self development and Robert Kiyosaki at the moment, doing a lot
Yeah.
of 21st century cash flow quadrant, and I love this kind of conversation because it's it's what we're taught, right? It's what we are brought up with. Don't take risk.
All right. Well,
Don't
have you
go by yourself. Follow the crowd. Be the sheep. Be what the school teaches you. Get the job, get the qualification, get the job, and then settle for the pension. Settle.
right. And that's again in Think and Grow Rich. There's a poem in there where I don't remember the whole thing, but it says, I settled with life for a penny, and life would pay no more. Man, the first time I read that, I was like, like, how many people are settling for life for a penny? All right, they could have a ton more, but they're settling. And and he made a comment, made me think, like, what we're supposed to do. And have you ever thought about everything they said we're not supposed to do? We do almost all the time now, right? Growing up, I was told never get in a stranger's car. We do that every day now on Uber and everything else, right? Don't let strangers into your home. People rent their homes. Like, people, like, you know what I mean? Like, so, like, don't take food from strangers, and people get food delivered from strangers every day. Like, so everything they said we should never do, we do every day. So it makes me think, in the financial part of it, why are we still listening to what they say we're supposed to do when everything else, it's flipped on their head? And I think AI is going to be a massive shift with that, because I remember hearing, man, I don't know if it was Hillary Clinton or one of them, a couple elections back. They were talking about wanting to get rid of the coal industry, which is lunacy, but get rid of coal. And people they asked her, well, what are all these coal miners going to do? And she was like, well, they just need to learn how to code. They just need to learn a new trade, learn how to code. And I'm thinking, yeah, all these coal miners are going to learn how to code. Let's flip that on its head now. AI is taking over coding. Like, those jobs are done, right? And so, okay, now what are all those coders going to do? Like, you better figure something out. And that's where, like, the CEO of NVIDIA was talking the other day. He said he thinks one of the next million, like the next $1 million jobs are going to be in the trades, right? HVAC and plumbing, and just things that most people looked down on back in the day, like having a trade. But yet, I don't know how far out, if ever, like, AI is going to take over some dude coming to my house and fixing my AC unit. You know what I mean? Like, and so that's where he was talking, like, there's just such a skills gap, that there's so much wealth in these areas if people are just willing to go get it, because they're going to need to do it. But I think that's the settling, man, the settling for comfort, and or giving up your freedoms for safety, right? For the perceived safety. But
Security risk.
mm-hmm. And I remember somebody, I don't remember who said it, but they were talking about, if you the people don't have to take power from you. Your people will willingly give it away for safety. Right. And COVID was a huge, again, that was such a psych op in so many areas of showing all these plays, right? Because they used fear so much. I remember we've been to India several times. And of course, during COVID, there was a 2 or 3 year gap. The next time we went, I was talking with some of these younger people over there, and they were asking me about America. They're like, man, how'd y'all get through it and all this? I'm like, what are you talking about? They was like, we're here and there's just dead people in the streets. Like, there's just dead people everywhere, and so that was their perception of America. And I'm like, where I live in Texas, it was pretty normal for a lot of it, right? Like, in the major cities, it was one thing, but like where we live, like, it was pretty normal. And I'm thinking, they were almost fearful for us even coming back, because they thought it was such this, basically a death sentence. And I'm like, yeah, guys, that wasn't anything like that. You know what I mean? But yet, people were willing to give up so many freedoms. And I mean, for crying out loud, people would like snitch on their neighbors for stuff for safety, right? For the perception of safety. So these people in power could keep it and or strip more of our freedoms away because people just wanted to be safe, right? And have that comfort and that safety and hide. And it's like, you and I in the exercise world, we know, like, how ludicrous is it to say, stay out of the sun, stay at home, don't exercise, just be a hermit, right? When we're talking about our health and longevity versus exercising, getting some sunlight on your body, right? Getting some vitamin D on yourself, and taking proper supplementation and stuff like that. But we were told, again, what were we told? Do the opposite. So it's almost like what what's the main thing out there that people are saying, you should probably try to do the opposite of what they're saying to do, because it's for a reason they're saying it, right? And it's like, so that was something that never made sense to me. I said, okay, our bodies are so magnificently made, it produces its own vitamin D by getting in the sun. Vitamin D is vitally important to your immune system.
100%.
Vitally. Get in the sun, right? Go for a walk, exercise, do something to have your body. And I mean, I caught it 2 or 3 times. I felt a little fatigued. I had a headache. That was about it. Like, I was like, I'm not going to take any kind of experimental drugs. I'm not going to do any of this. I still consider myself younger, even though I'm almost 50, but it's like, I take care of myself. I know my immune system's functioning well. I don't think God made a mistake when he created us, and he created this amazing immune system to fight off things. So I don't think after all the years that us humans have been on, and how our immune system have evolved to our environments, that I need to put some experimental, uh, drug into me to help my body produce spike proteins to fight something off. I think God has it under control. You know what I mean? And so, but again, it's getting that point of, man, of safety and comfort. And I think just so many of these things. And then again, the fear of what other people will say that will just keep you down. And like I said, you drilled it earlier, man. We were talking about anytime we try to step out to do something different, normally it's the closest ones around us, man. Like
Yeah.
our good friends, or sometimes our family members are like, you're an idiot. What are you doing?
Yeah,
And
no,
they try to drill it.
it was the same with Charlotte starting her business with New Skin and network marketing. And she thought it was just because it was the industry. I was like, no, like, I own traditional businesses, and people have the same opinion with me to traditional business. When I closed my first business, I had family members saying, "Oh, why don't you go get a job?" I was
Right.
like, hell no.
Right.
No, no, why, we're going to go again. Okay, it didn't work. It was on my control, but it didn't work. So I take that on to fact. We now go again. There's no way I'm going to go get a job. So
Right.
the thought process that they had of Charlotte and being New Skin network marketing, it's the same in traditional businesses as well.
Yeah.
Now,
And
even now, I've just gone from 2 studios to 3, and the people, some people, not in my inner circle, but people that I still keep at arm's length. Why open another one? You've got 2. You're okay. You're doing really
yeah,
well. Why risk a third?
right. Isn't that
Why not?
crazy? And I think risk, I'm actually in the middle of writing a book. It's kind of on some different R's that goes into to entrepreneurship and leadership. And one of the R's is risk. And you have to be willing to take some risk in life, man. If you want to create something long lasting, it's never going, if you're never willing to risk anything. And look, I've made some great decisions, financially and business wise. I've made some horrible ones, right? Like, I've made some disastrous ones. Cost a lot of money, great education, learned a lot, but not being willing to risk. And and you see people where the most people's financial education, like you were saying, we've talked about Robert Kiyosaki, it's find that job, stay there, and for most people's mentality, if I'm saving a little money, then I'm doing okay. Not using that savings to reinvest to create more money, but just to save it, which we all know in today's world, you're basically losing money if you just have it in a savings account. But how many people are scared to delve into some type of investing, whether it's real estate, stocks, crypto, this, that, or the other, because either they don't understand it, they don't want to understand it, or it's easier for me to say, oh, I'm going to take 5 or 10% of mine and just put it in a savings account and leave it there. I don't want to risk it. Okay, but are you really growing it? Are you really going to be able to create anything out of it?
Yeah, in the books, Robert describes it as parking and moving. So parking your money where people believe that's the sensible thing to do. Put it into a savings account, put it into your pensions, and it will look after you when you're older.
Right.
And then when you look into what interest you earn on that, and then when are you going to use it in 20, 30 years' time, it's nothing. And then moving money to make more money for you, creating
For sure.
assets, make money, make money. Yeah, it's a different education, right?
And sadly, we're never taught that. Now whether it is a concerted effort, you read a lot of history and from the Rockefellers, all that, when it goes into the education system of like, we just want to train good employees. Like, we don't want people to critically think.
Industrial age.
Right. We don't want people to critically think. We just want people to do what they say. Like, do what we say. So I remember in high school, I got into algebra 2. I always loved English and history. I was not a math guy, right? So I made it through algebra at some point. Geometry made a little more sense. Got into algebra 2, disaster. And I think it was my junior year, but I was able to transfer in. I don't remember the name of the course, but it was almost like a business math type course where they taught us how to balance a checkbook. They taught budgets. They taught like different life skills. And I was like, man, I got more out of that I use every day than I ever would have out of any of that other stuff. Why isn't that required so that people get out, or some of these young people get out and understand the true meaning of debt, so they don't voluntarily start their life in a big ass hole where they get out of university and they're sitting there, 100,000 in debt at 22, and then they get their first job, and I know they feel entitled to 100,000 a year, but that's not where any of us start, right? And so then they start themselves in this massive hole because no one ever taught them. I was as guilty as ever. I never went to college, but when I got separated from the military, I moved in with some buddies of mine. I got a landline phone, right? I'm aging myself here, but we got a phone into the apartment, and AT&T was like, "Oh, you got great credit. You qualify for a $3,000 Visa, credit card." I'm like, freaking awesome. Before I knew it, the balance was higher than my limit, right? Because of fees and everything else. And I'm like, I thought I had a $3,000 limit. How do I owe $3,500? But it just was never really taught, and honestly, I did not take the lessons. I watched my parents practice, but they didn't drill in. I watched them never carry debt, right? But it didn't click until I got in the hole. Oh, this is why it's such a trap, right? It's like, it's like the Bible says, man, you're a debt to, you're a servant to the lender, right? Like, they own your ass, right? They got you. And so, kind of getting to this, and it's like, why does people, and again, if we're talking about quality of life and longevity of life, coming into the financial aspect of it, why isn't this required education for every high school kid to understand the dangers of debt, to understand how to run a budget and live off less than you make? I remember in my 20s, as I was starting to learn all this, it was kind of funny because my dad and my pastor both had the same philosophy: is, you tithe your 10%, you save 10%, or you invest 10%, you live off 80. You can't live off 80. You have wrong spending problems, right?
Yeah.
And we know how many people we know that live off 100%
Yeah.
every
Month in, month out.
right?
Yeah.
And then what happened when COVID happened? They couldn't work, right? Like, disaster, right? Like, it was a major slap to the back of the head, I think, most people financially and health-wise. But, it's one of those things. So,
I do really hope that the education moves, because we've been in that industrial age of education for so long, and when the industrial age education started, yeah, okay, it was good. Learn a skill, get a job, get a pension. A pension was worth something back in the industrial age.
right,
Now it means nothing.
right.
And I hope that the school education system does catch up with the information age that we are. We're not even moving into it because we've been into it for a very long time. So
Right.
they need to catch up, because everything they are saying is correct. My parents left school at 16, got a jobs. My dad was in the military, but they've worked their whole lives and they're both coming to pension age now. They are really happy that their house is paid off and they're going to have a pension. And for them, perfect. Like, I'm so happy that they've created that. But I can't think of anything worse. And when I say to my parents, like, we don't own a house, we own a pension portfolio, a property portfolio where
Right.
we don't live in the house. Like, the house we live in, we rent. And they're like, why? Why would you not own a house and rent it on? Well, because the house we first lived in, we now rent out. We make money that pays for this one, and then the money we bought from that one, we now own 2, 3, 4 houses. And they're like, yeah, but when we stop working, we've got £400,000 in this house. I'm like, yeah, and then what?
Right.
It's
Right.
going to sit inside your house, and then it's going to go
Right.
into your will.
Because unless you sell it, like it's just there, like it's sitting there. And sadly, most people, it's funny when most people get in retirement, they don't downsize because they just want to. They have to, right? They can't afford their standard of living or what they used to be able to because what their retirement is versus what their income was, it wasn't the same, and I think that's where people taking responsibility for their financial education and their financial situation is so huge. But again, that's another R word that's almost a curse word to most people, like taking responsibility. I'd rather say it's somebody else's fault, right? And that's what we hear. There's this big hubbub a few years ago where our administration was trying to say, oh, we just need to forgive all the student loan debt and pay it off with taxpayer money. Okay, well, I never went to college. Why am I responsible for someone else's debt? Like, I'm
Yeah.
still paying taxes, but that that doesn't work, and that was a decision. So okay, so can I run up 30,000 in credit cards and say, wow, I need someone else to pay that off for me? But no one wants to take ownership and responsibility for the decisions they make for themselves on so many areas. I hear people all the time that are in bad health and they complain because they're this hurts or this is broke or whatever. I have all these medical issues. And it's like, I don't know why this is happening to me. Well, look how you lived for 40 years. Like maybe that's why. Like you did drugs and drank and smoked and you did all these things for decades and it broke down your body and now you're paying the consequence for it. But yet, poor me, like, why is this happening to me? No, you did it. Like you made a decision, own what you did. Now we can start to try to correct that, right? I mean, our bodies are pretty amazing machines. They can rejuvenate a lot of stuff, but it's like, okay, are you making a conscious choice now to correct it? Or are you just wanting to play victim, right? Like, poor me. And same with finance, everything else. People complain about it. It's like, so what are you doing to fix it? Instead of just complain about it, like, are you actively trying to create new cash? Are you actively trying to cut out your debt? Are you actively trying to live off less than you make?
But all of these R's that you talk about, they're harder.
Yeah.
Risk, risk is hard. Responsibility is hard. Reward is hard. The other
Yeah.
side is easy. Being the
Yeah.
victim.
Resilience is one of them.
Yeah, resilience.
You
They're
know
all
what I
hard.
mean?
You have to
Yeah.
take action. You have to be determined.
Well, it's that old saying that's been thrown around a lot, but at some point in your life, you will choose that hard. Right now, it might be something that comes and slaps you in the head because all of a sudden you're underwater in your finances or you're underwater in your health or whatever else. But that hard will happen at some point. So do you want to start now? And that's where, like, my boys now, they're 23, 21, and 19. And, we've been on them for the past couple of years, like, start investing now. Like that power of compounding interest, like starting, I wish I started at 18, 19 years
God,
old, right? Like start now. Like start, my wife handles a lot of some of our investing stuff. I'm like, your mom's educating this stuff, man. Give her $200 a month, $500 a month. Give her something, or $100 a month, whatever. But give her something to start this portfolio from you, so that
can you
that
imagine?
power.
Can you imagine going to like a math class or an algebra class when you were 14, 15, 16 and being showed the compound effect on £200 into a 10% earning? Oh shit!
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean,
Everyone's life would be so much different.
I know. And because that's where they don't think it. They say, okay, well, between 20 and 30, it's not that much. But when you hit between 30 and 40, it's pretty substantial. When you get 40 to 50, like your eyes are going to bug out. Like, wait, what? What just happened to this money? How did that happen? Right. And that's where most people don't, again, they it's sad to me how many people get out of high school and or college and never read a book again. Right? They don't take ownership, true ownership. I guess that word hit me. I'm looking at that book, Extreme Ownership's right across from me. But taking real ownership of your life in all aspects of your life so that you can live the kind of life that you want to live. You know what I mean? Whether that's going into your health, like I joke all the time, I want to be 89 years old with my hair on fire, man, like freaking living life, But so I know what I'm doing now is going to affect 30 years down the road. And same with my money. Like I don't want to be in great health, but not have the two cents to rub together. Like I want to explore this world, man. Like I want to travel, I want to have fun, I want to do experiences. That's where I love spending my money. I could care less about new cars. Like I want to go places, and,
100%.
and go
That's what
experience.
life's about, experiences.
Yeah. And it's like people don't understand like how in everything we do, there's a book called The Compound Effect, but it really talks about like that these small daily little choices. And I joked someone in the gym the other day, they're trying to lose weight. And I said, look, it's simple. Cause first of all, she was drinking 4 Cokes a day. And I was like, that's number one, stop that. Like that will get weight off you right away. But I was like, if you just stop that compound effect will be massive for you. It works the opposite way. If I eat a candy bar today, it's probably not going to show. If I eat one every day for a year, right, I might look a little different. You know what I mean? Like the compound effect works in every area. And if you can understand how to use that in areas of your life to your benefit, right, and your family's benefit and everything, man, like again, it blows me away how many people kind of live in this shell where they don't think about things like this, or they don't want to confront the hard. They don't want to confront the reality. They know they're living off I know people live probably off 102% of their income. That math doesn't work. I guess if you're in the government, it works, but it doesn't work in real life, right? It's crazy to say, okay, well, why don't you just cut out, eating out? Why don't you just cut out like just small little things to just get ahead of it? Well, yeah, but I don't feel like cooking. Okay. Well, and it's like what you need to do. And I guess like why do you think people just won't do what they know they need to do? What do you think that block is for people?
I don't know, man. It's hard. Those small little things, right?
Well, how did you I'm sure there were times and it might just have been there was not a choice, but you still had to get there mentally. Because I know there were times through your 10 years in the military, you were probably told to do things you didn't really want to do, right? Like, I don't really want this mission sounds like horrible. This sounds like complete crap show, man.
Is this
Uh,
optional or can we like
right.
stay?
And I know in that setting you don't have the choice, but you still got to get there. You still got to wrap your head around it, right? Because you can't go into it with the doubt or the fears or anything else. And so kind of like, do you think that was, from the military, just a huge benefit going into entrepreneurship of being able to confront and do the things you didn't want to do in order to have the success on the back end?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think in the military, you um, get a lot of training in kind of emotion and how to deal with it. So having to face something, even if you don't want to do it, being able to do it as in the military has then helped me in entrepreneurial life and in fatherhood. Being able to fatherhood's a lot more tricky than entrepreneurship, right? But yeah, the military really trained you to take action and to go wholehearted into that action. I think what really helped me through the military and then go forward was like goals for also a reason. So like the reason I joined the military was 9/11, and I knew that I wasn't gonna allow that to come to my country and
Right.
to be duplicated across into other countries. But having a reason, a why, I think will push you forward. If that makes sense, if that answers that.
For
Having a
sure.
why, having a deep enough why, an understanding on a why. made me do the things in the military that I didn't want to do, made me do the things that I have to do in entrepreneurship that I don't want to do, made me do the things I have to do as a father.
Right.
Not there's a why behind the back of them, and being close enough to that why will push you forward. And if people don't have that why, I think that's sometimes the reason that they decide to drink the extra can of Coke, the reason that they don't decide to invest or educate themselves. It's a why. It comes down to a why.
Yeah. And I think most people, again, I think there's a big problem with a lot of people not having a sense of purpose, right, in their life, and going into that why, right? Like what were each of us truly created to do? Like why, when I think about how God created us, and you think about the 8 billion people on this earth, and not one of us have the same fingerprints or DNA, right? Like we're all so unique, and we're placed here for a reason, for a purpose. And we all have individual talents, gifts, everything else. And I don't think but I think there's a lot of people that sedate themselves, whether it's in AI, VR, social media, or whatever, and they're living a life through other people and never looking in themselves and saying, what's my purpose? Like what am I created for? And what are the gifts that I have that I can then share with the world and in other areas? And they just don't, I think that's the danger of a lot of the technology that's out there now, because you can just zone out and not even think about it. Or in some of these worlds, right? Some of these VR worlds and with AI and everything. I mean, you're hearing about people having relationships with an inanimate object,
Mhm.
right? Like this freaking AI
I,
tool.
I
Like,
I read somewhere in is it in Japan? Someone's had the first virtual reality wedding where they've legally married software.
right, and which is insane. Right? Like we are spiritual beings. Like we are meant to be with people, right? Like and have relationships and be able to communicate and procreate and everything else, right? Like that's who we are as at a core. And it's like, but and again, I think that's the danger. And I think it's a real danger if you look at some of the stuff coming out of World Economic Forum or all these other things about this transhuman deal about, yeah, your bodies aren't good enough on their own. We need to start inserting a bunch of crap in you, to make you better. Which, in my mind, I look at it in a lot of areas. I remember hearing this is what made me think about it. Mercedes, one of their EV cars that has X amount of horsepower. If you get on a subscription a month, they can increase it, right? They'll increase the horsepower. So literally by typing it in, they can increase your horsepower if you're willing to pay for it. My first thought, if they can do that, they could also just turn it off. Like they can just say, well, oh, you didn't pay your note. Yeah, you're off. So I started thinking about that. Okay, what what happens if you put something in you, right? That technically at some level has a control, because again, if I think there's some amazing applications on certain aspects. I've seen some amazing things happen with like wounded vets and things like that with some of this technology. But if you can make that work, can't you also make it not work? And do I want to give my sovereignty away, ultimately my ultimate sovereignty away? Because if I have things in like implanted in, like, whether you want to call it like the Neuralink stuff or whatever, but if I have something implanted into me where it's now ultimately having the ability to probably track everything I do, every spending I do, everything I do you not think somebody is going to be collecting all that? And then, or if you cross a line, because we're almost getting to that, I mean,
Well, it's actually worrying about somebody collecting it. It's actually going to be something collecting it.
right, right. And ultimately, are we going to, and that's what that book, Pure Human, talks about. Are we willing to give up our divinity of who we're created to be because of technology? Right, and allowing other things to come into us, because we can go to the far end and put on some tinfoil hats if you wanted to, but if even right now, and I'm hearing all kind of stories out of the UK right now, and in England and in different areas about even people getting arrested for social media posts. Okay, well, what if other things even worse than that get started to be tracked and everything else? And if you don't toe X line, Because I know, like, if you look at what happens in China with their social credit scores and all this, well, you can't travel certain places, you can't buy certain things, you can't. Oh, you reached your limit for this month, you can't buy anything else. And so it's like, and that's what freaks me out about England, because you've always, I've always looked at that as kind of a kinship to America and a lot of our sovereignty and freedoms. But then you look at, like, oh my gosh, if I post something that pisses somebody off, or makes someone feel offended, which I would be in trouble probably in England, but and then you get arrested for it because of an opinion you had, because I hurt someone's feelings. Like, where are we ultimately going with this? And again, look, if you said something to hurt my feelings, it's my choice whether I let that affect me or not. Right. Ultimately, I mean, people say stuff all the time. I'm like, it doesn't bother me, whatever. But it's like, we're in this world now where, you're worried about, or if someone says something, you could pull a card and be like, oh my gosh, I'm, emotionally triggered and it so hurt me, and, go down this road and want something to happen to somebody, because you don't even have control over again, your own identity. I'm secure in myself. I know who I'm. You can call me every name. It doesn't bother me. I know who I am. But yet most people, again, because I don't think they have that true identity of self, of who they are. And so, every all these surroundings, like, it blows my mind that I watch people literally are saying, because of somebody who's in our White House right now, I'm not going to have relationship with my family. Okay, number one, you've never met this man. You'll probably never meet him. Ultimately, like, your life is your life, but yet from something else, you're going to allow that so deep into you that you're going to fracture your family relationships because of someone you've never met. Because, whether you like them or not, whatever, I didn't most of the policies of our last administration, I didn't like. I knew guys that voted for him. We're still friends. Like, it didn't bother me. I'm not going to let something like that come between a personal relationship with a friend of mine. But yet now we have these people, again, they allowed themselves to go down these roads so psychologically on a level to where they allow it again to control so much of their life. Like, and you hear people, I can't be happy. For what? Like, what do you mean you can't be? It's a choice. I'm not going to allow, again, some dude I've never met going to, affect my happiness. Yeah. Okay. I disagree with that, but okay. I'm still going to be a happy guy. I'm still going to love my husband or my wife. I'm still going to, love my kids. I'm still going to do the things I'm going to do. Right. It freaks me out, or why or where we've gotten to this point. And again, when you ultimately look, I think what such boils down to a quality of life, a long-term quality of life, and so much, it really comes down to, how do you see yourself, who you are? Do
Mhm.
you love yourself, right, enough to want to take care of your body, to want to take care of your finances, to want to take care of your family, to, because ultimately, if you don't love yourself enough, does that really translate out to, how can you truly love someone else if you don't even love yourself? And I think, man, getting down to getting in people's heads a little bit about the longevity of understanding who they are, so that their quality of life can be so much better. Because it saddens me when, again, again, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? And you hear these people all the time talking about all this stuff. And it's like, man, these are, number one, it's like when COVID happened, most rules that they try to put in place, I couldn't do anything about. I couldn't do anything about. Like, okay, I can't do anything about that, but what can I do? Right? Is that what can I do mentality? Okay, I'm not going to let that destroy my quality of life. I'm not going to let that destroy my business, because ultimately, right, the money just transferred in the economy. Didn't evaporate, just transferred. Right? So if you were a bartender, yeah, you were in trouble. But if you were in toilet paper, you did a lot of money. Right? Like, it just moved. So it's like, okay, it's not what I can't do, what can I do? And I'm not going to allow, circumstances. And I think this is a big trap for most people, where they allow circumstances they can't control to have control over their life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, again, I know you could probably go back to a million stories in the military where you were in situations you couldn't control. You had to control what you could control, to then have the outcome that you desired. Now, I know it didn't always work out exactly like, you thought it would, but okay, like, for example, if you got in an ambush situation, can't control that.
No.
What can you do? Right?
Yeah.
Like what can you do through this? And I
But
think so many.
I think people worry too much about the things they can't control, and that seems to be a real big theme in the world at the
Right.
moment right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Instead of
because
focusing on what you can control and the actions you can take that allow you to control those things you can do. So many people just are worried about everything else, the
right.
things they can't control.
It's crazy, man. And I don't get it because again, to me, in a rational sense, if people just took a step back and take a rational sense, why allow something you can't control to have control of yourself? Right? Like my mom passed away a couple months ago, couldn't control that. I could have, okay, so what can I do from it? Okay, well, I want to now live a life that's in honor of her, right? Of the man that she helped raise, right? With her and my dad. Same when my dad died. It was, both of them were pretty unexpected. So it was kind of like, okay, this is something kind of out of the blue. Weren't expecting it. Weren't really sick. Nothing happened. Okay, I've seen people take that same situation, go in a hole, and let everything crumble around them. And in my view, is like, okay, is situation is kind of that old equation from Jack Canfield: E plus R equals O. Right? There's an event, the response to the event equals the outcome. Okay, well, I see people respond, to an event. My first thought when my parents died was, okay, I want to honor them through my life for the man that they made me. They raised, like they instilled all this stuff into me. So I want to live a life worthy of that. Like I want to honor them through it. I don't want to go in a hole and let my life go to shambles. Because honestly, like my dad would have been pissed off. Like he'd have been like, "That's not the man I raised you to be. Like you got to take care of your family. Like what are you doing? Like honor me through your work, honor me through your business, honor me through your ties and in the mission work you do around the world. Like that's the man I raised you to be. Like not some weak guy that okay, a tragedy happened, which we all know at some point we're all going to die, but don't allow my death to disrupt that, right? Who I made you to be and all that. And that's where in every situation of our lives, man, we have to understand that, like, again, it's just lunacy to allow situations we can't control to have 100% control over us. Like it's crazy. Like why do we do that? But yet it's common. Like it's almost default setting for some reason for
Yeah.
most people, you know. I don't know, man. Anyway, we've been riffing for a long time, man, but I really appreciate it. And I want to thank you again for spending some time. I know it's getting later for you over in the UK, but man, really appreciate it. And man, I have a lot of love for you and your wife. And thanks for spending time, man, kind of sharing some wisdom and just being a part of the Live Younger Longer movement, man, because that's what it's all about. I know you're passionate about helping people live a really high quality of life. And I know that's your life, man. I know that's your business. So
Yeah,
I really
thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much for the invite. I appreciate it, man. I love what you're doing. I love watching you. You've been an idol of mine for a while. Someone I've been watching from afar. I appreciate you, the way you handle yourself, the way you help people. You're a gentleman and a true guy. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
I really appreciate that, man. The feeling's mutual. And again, it's one of the best things I love about our business, man. Just the friendships that we made. Because if it wasn't for this business, I would have never met you. And so I'm truly grateful for the friendships I have. I'm grateful that I have somebody that, again, I look at you as somebody in my life that like if it just needed an ear, needed advice, man, I got that brother. And I think that's so important with the relationships that we have to have those people that, again, will just, what number one holds you to account, but also just be like have that circle, man. Have that circle of people around you that you can go to because, especially as men, a lot of times most men they just want to, I can handle it myself. I'm not going to talk to anybody. I'm going to isolate, right? And it's such a trap for men to get into, and to have that circle of men around you that that your brothers, right? Those guys that are around you that you can count on that have your back and that will help you through it. So, and again, that's where I've always appreciated the friendship that we've created over the last couple of years, and I really appreciate you spending some time, man. So I really appreciate you, brother.
Go, man. Speak to you soon.
All right, brother.